Hey everybody, you may not recognize me, but yeah, shaving mistake or trimming mistake ended up in a shaving mistake. I regret it. I miss my beard. Oh, I miss my beard. Anyways, stuff happens. 2 days ago, I released an episode on organizing my toolbox, if you remember, and showed you that new system that I've created with the wooden dowels, board, all bringing back a memory. Um, in that process, I showed you what I did on my Ratchet with that foam, with this foam. Well, anyways, I am going to take a second stab at that product, make it a little bit nicer, something that I'd be a little bit more happy with in showing other people. And I wanted to show you how you can use this in your tool organization as well as other things. I mean, you can use them in those Pelican cases for cameras and anything that you need to protect something and you want to protect it with a soft barrier like foam. So as usual, Arizona, stinking hot with or without a beard. So we're going inside and commandeering my wife's kitchen table. Actually, dining table. All right, it's another day. It's edit day. I've been putting together the footage for this particular episode, and as I was looking over the footage, I changed the way I did things from the beginning to the end, only because I had opportunity to play around with and test out methods of cutting on the Kaizen foam. So what I wanted to do is kind of scratch all that footage that I shot and come back to you with a little bit of a precursor to what you're going to see, and then afterwards give you some of my final thoughts and final notes on that. First of all, Kaizen Foam that I use is a product of FastCap. I've got the link to the 3 sizes that I have that I've been using. 3 different sizes. We've got the 57 millimeter size, which would be really, really good. It's going to be great for things like my sledges, drills, really deep type tools that are going to sit way down low and are in bigger, deeper drawers. Then of course I have my 30 mil, which is what I've used in this particular episode for the ratchet drawer. This will also be great for screwdrivers if you got big, deep screwdrivers, possibly some wrenches and stuff. However, I think this 20 mil is going to be more ideal for the screwdrivers, the screwdrivers, the wrenches, and lower, flatter type tools, because it doesn't have to be so deep. Now beforehand, before you see all this other video, I mentioned I had time to play with the foam and to really get used to the cutting and familiarizing myself with it. And that's what I encourage you to do. Once you've cut all your sheets, hopefully you get enough foam to actually start cutting on before you do the actual end result size. I did several different methods. First, the method that was on the original insert that I did was what FastCap recommends. Mind you, I didn't use a FastCap marking pen. Their marking pens have a very narrow, almost pencil-like end with the reservoir of ink at the top at the bigger end, but they do that so that the felt is closer up against the tool as you're tracing out the tool onto the Kaizen foam. I don't like that method only because even after about 6 months of having that done like that, the ink still came off onto my hands. And plus, I could see it. Even though it was black permanent ink on black foam, I could still see it, and it looked kind of sloppy to me. However, it is an effective way. That's how they recommend doing it, and that's how they show you how to do it. The second idea that I had when I came across, when I was playing around with this, was I would take a sheet of paper the size of where I was cutting, and I would put the sheets, in this particular case, I did a sheet this size, and just testing, I put one of my ratchets, an extension, and a step down bit in here. Then what I did is after I cut those pieces out, I taped that piece to here on the edges, so there's still some little gap in between the surface of the Kaizen foam and the paper. Went outside and just lightly dusted it with white spray paint. You might be able to see, especially right up here, that there's some overspray that went through on the foam. And so that, again, I mean, you can imagine if I didn't like black marker on black foam, white paint on black foam, I didn't like that either. So after laying out all of my tools on a big sheet of paper and having cut out all the shapes and the form and the layout that I wanted on there, I was thinking, what do I do? So I grabbed the actual shapes this time and I placed them on the foam and used those as guides with my knife. And that's what you're going to see right now. So before I show you a finished version of all the notches and everything like that dug out of here, let me explain this new process. So it's paintless. I'm not using the paint over here to mark where things are on this template that just kind of didn't work. It allowed paint to go underneath. It was a mess. So rather than just call it quits and do it the way they're telling me to do it, of course I have to be stubborn and do it my way. So I just took the shapes, the cutouts from over here, and I pinned them. If you can see down here, I've got little pins that I've stuck into the foam to lay out all the shapes where I want them. So this way, there's not going to be any marker residue or anything, or paint residue, to come off of this surface. And now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my NT cutter knife, okay, and basically I found that every notch is roughly about the thickness of each of these layers. You can see a layer at the knife out a little bit more so you can see. So we got this layer, which is about an 1/8 of an inch. We got this layer, which is roughly an 1/8 of an inch, 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 and 1/8 of an inch. And so what I'll do is I've got this tool next to put in there. So that extension is this extension, okay? So you can see that extension there. So what I'm going to do is I take my little sample of the foam and I determine that I want it to be down so that it's just halfway in. And I can see that the knob, the end of this extension, goes down to 2 thicknesses, okay? So in this spot, I want it to go down 2, but the rest of it will sit happily just below the black surface. So I know now, after doing all these other little parts here, that 1 click fully in, 1 click out, and that is how thick I'm going to cut first all the way around this whole shape. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to go 1 more click and I'm going to cut out just this area right here. So this is extra deep. This is 2 layers deep. This is a single layer deep, and that way my tool, my extension, will fit right in there just nice. So now you can see how inside there I've got the 2 layers. I've got 1 single white layer, 1 black, and then I've cut across. Gives enough, when you cut it, you can see where you've cut. Okay, and watch this, when I go across, here's my little pieces that I've now cut 1 layer deep with my knife. So now I'm going to be plucking out just the black layer. See if I can do this one-handed without. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be kind of going against it. So very little of the white is coming up with it. Okay, and this is all the way cut. let's go this way. Left-handed now. Yeah, I'm just gonna dig in and pulling at the same time. There's my hole. If you look closely, you can see how it steps down right there to be able to receive. Where did my tool go? To be able to receive that deeper part, and it's just going to sit perfectly right there. Now, so that I don't have to put little thumb holes, which is really what bothered me the most, I think, about my last attempt at this. So I can just push down on this, and it comes up. Goes down. I want that extension, bam, there it is, that's the extension. So I'm going to do that same process for each of these. I've got the hand socket ratchet, I don't know what that thing's called, but you know, you kind of spin it by hand, you're not ratcheting. So I'm going to put the rest of these extensions over here. I'm going to put the black extensions over here. The hand, I just call them hand ratchets. You put a ratchet on there, and this actually ratchets, but you're twisting like that. If you know the actual name of that, cool. Let me know the actual name of this and the actual name of this tool, which is this one right here. What is the actual name of that? Anyway, so I'm gonna get this rest all cut out, and then we'll take a look at it when I'm done. And there is the finished product as far as all the holes are cut and plucked. Now it's time to put that in the drawer. And there is the finished drawer. Inside the drawer and everything. Now let's do the sound test and see how it sounds when you shut it. You'll hear the clinging and clanging of metal. Everything is staying put. Now, some of the things that I found a bit of a challenge are circles, especially tight circles. This is a small item, and that's the smallest I could turn that hole. So you can see it just wobbles around inside there. It's not a tight fit. This a little tighter, a little tighter, a little tighter, so forth and so on, the bigger they go. So my recommendation is, if you are doing a socket set, I would only do your flat pieces, or your, things like this, the long pieces. Round pieces, such as sockets, I would leave to a system like this. They stay put. Okay, pull them back out. As you see, nothing has come out. As far as expansion and stuff like that, I've left some room to expand, but if I was to expand to a whole different style of socket, okay, I would probably have to go to another drawer. But this is still expandable without having to rip it out and start all over from scratch. It's much better than this system. I'll get to this drawer another day. But as far as for things like screwdrivers, ratchets, extensions, things like that, this system right here is really, really good. So there you have it. Couple key things to take away from all of this. Great product for flat type tools. I would not use this for sockets, only because circles are very, very hard to cut in this foam. And also when you start to get to the smaller size, the 1/4 inch type drive sockets, they get really tiny, and it just getting enough of that turned around and dug out is going to be a big challenge. So I would only use this for wrenches, for ratchets, for screwdrivers, drills, the big type of tools and things like that, but not for your round socket type tools. The other thing is whichever way you decide that you're going to cut out your shape, whether you draw it on like FastCap says, whether you spray paint the template that you've made like I did the option 2, or whether you take your paper cutouts, if you use that shape and you use that as a guide as you're cutting, whichever method you use to cut the shape, I would then also come in with your blade and cut little pieces across here, okay? In FastCap's videos, they show them digging out the whole piece, and what happens is as you're digging it and you're pulling it, it has a tendency to go beyond that glued surface. That's what you're doing. You're cutting down to the glued surface so that when you pull, everything else stays in and that it just kind of tears along that glued surface. When you make smaller bite-sized chunks across your shape, it's easier just to pop out little, pop and pluck basically those little pieces, and you get a cleaner finish. Those are some of the things that I recommend that you could do if you decide to use the Kaizen Foam. If you decide to use those links, I do get a commission off of that. So support future episodes of Bigsy's Garage and use those links below to go and purchase your Kaizen Foam or any of the other tools that I list down there for you. It'll really help me out quite a bit. But other than that, have fun doing this. Take your time. Try not to speed through it at all, because that's when you start making mistakes. At least that's when I started making the mistakes. And I'm sure that you're no different than I am, right? Anyways, until next time, keep on wrenching. Is that the 5? Okay. So there you have it.